Hey guys, this is George with Firehouse Music, and today we're going to talk about the major scale. The major scale is going to be the precursor to another series of things that will eventually lead us to phrasing and how to play. We are going to be using, we're going to be translating this onto the guitar finally, right? We're going to be looking at music theory and then look at what that stuff sounds like on the guitar, because that's ultimately what you want. If music theory stays on the paper, then it never really makes it to your playing. So our goal is to understand and realize the names that we're learning and what they sound like, because music theory is nothing more than a systematic way of naming the different sounds that we find in music. So today we're talking about the major scale, and you'll see kind of how everything links together. So I'm going to be using the system of notation that I explained on the previous video. So if you haven't watched those yet, go back and watch them now, and then come back to this one. So the major scale, right? We're going to start in the key of C, so no accidentals on our staff. Right, so we're here. And because we're playing guitar, we're going to use the treble clef. All right, so if we build a major scale here, we're going to have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C, right? Now, the way this works, the way the major scale works, if you look at the distance between each one of these notes, and I will explain this with the guitar so it's a little bit more visual, but in a minute. So the distance between each one of these notes, right? So we can name these or number these notes. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we're back to 1. Right? So we won't number that one, but that's there for a reason. And these numbers will be important eventually, so take note of them. So the distance between these notes is what makes the sound of the scale, right? And those distances are intervals, which we will talk about in a future video. So for now, right, let's understand that the distance between these two notes is a whole step or a major second. And we have another whole step here. Then we have a half step here. A whole step, a whole step, a whole step, and then finally let's put 1 here. From 7 to 1, we're back to half step. So the formula of the scale is whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. What does that mean? Well, in terms of distance, right, if we were to take that and play it on the guitar on a single string, you can see that a half step or a minor second is 1 fret. Okay? And a major second is going to be 2 frets. You hear the sound different. It's a minor second. Think of the theme of Jaws, you know. Right, that's the minor second, and then the major second. Happy birthday, maybe. So the first 2 notes of happy birthday. Right. That's a major second. So if we pull all those things together and we play them along a single string, you're going to find that we have C, whole step, right? Whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. And so we pull all that together, you get on a single string. You can see my hand moving. Obviously, that's not very practical. So if we're trying to play, there are either 5 or 7 different fingerings depending on what system of fingering you use. I'm going to use the A-shaped fingering or a second position fingering for the C major scale in this case, and I can play the exact same notes. And I can expand that over multiple octaves if I want. Okay, but for now we're trying to look at the distance between those notes, right? So if we just take the 8 that I wrote there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That gives me a little fingering that I can move around the neck, and I have a major scale in all the keys that way. So I have C, D flat, D, E flat, E, F, F sharp, G, A flat, A, B over here. I forgot B flat. B flat, then B, and then I'm back to C. So I have them all. So notice that regardless of what note I start on, as long as I maintain the distance the same, the scale is going to be the same. In this case, we have to put a title on this thing. We're talking about the major scale. Okay? Major scale. So, right, doesn't matter where I start. And again, I'm going to switch back to linear so you can see along a single string that it doesn't matter what note I start on. If I start randomly on a fret, like fret 6, which corresponds to the note E flat, I don't have to know the notes in the key of E flat in order to play the scale. I just follow the formula. So I have E flat, F, G, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Same thing if I start anywhere, it doesn't matter. I can go here. Oops, wrong fret there. So no matter where I play, as long as I follow this formula, you're always going to have the major scale. And this is going to lead us to a better understanding of intervals. We can talk about intervals without using the major scale as a reference. You can build a reference chart that helps you understand the intervals in isolation, but I think it's a little bit easier to grasp them if you have a basic understanding of what the major scale is and what these notes are. Right, so you have your first, your second, your third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh notes in the scale, and then later when we talk about the compound intervals or extended intervals on that second octave, it's going to be a little bit easier, again, because you have the foundation of this scale. Now, there's one more thing about this I want to talk about. And that, just like on the guitar, right? We doesn't matter what note we put it on, the scale doesn't change. The same thing is true in notation. But what happens to my formula if I take this scale and just do this? And I'm like, okay, I'm going to start on D and finish on D, right? And leave everything the same. Well, now I run into a problem because I'll have a whole step here, a half step here, whole step, whole step, whole step, whole step, oops, half step, and a whole step there. Right? If you remember, the formula for the major scale was whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. So this doesn't match. So this is not a major scale. That's a problem if we're trying to play a major scale. How do we correct that? Well, we adjust the scales by adding accidentals. That's where the sharps come in. If I do this, right, so I have right here, right, I have a whole step and then a half step. By changing that to an F sharp, this turns into a whole step and this one turns into a half step. So now I'm good here. Same thing here. I need a whole step and this is a half step, then I just move that note up. Now this between B and C sharp, I have a whole step, and between C sharp and D, I have a half step. Right? Rather than doing this all the time, what you have is something that's called key signatures. And your key signatures are going to be, for lack of a better term, the default accidentals that are going to allow you to have a major sound. In the case of major keys, we'll talk about minor keys eventually. Right now, let's focus on just on the major keys. So, you're going to have 15 different key signatures. Okay? So there's C, which has nothing. And then you're going to have 7 sharp keys and 7 flat keys. Okay? So if I do this, And the sharps are going to appear in a predetermined order. So you have F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, E sharp, and B sharp. Okay? And the flat keys appear in the reverse order. So you have B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, C flat, and F flat. Now, if you start from nothing, that's the key of C, and then each one of these, one sharp is one key, that's the key of G. Two sharps, that's the key of D. Three sharps is the key of G. Four sharps is the key of E. Five sharps, the key of B. Six sharps, the key of F sharp. And finally, seven sharps, the key of C sharp. Then going the other way, going through the flat keys now, the first one, nothing is C, right? So then one is F, two, E flat, B flat, sorry. Three is E flat. Four is A flat. Five is D flat. Six is G flat. And seven is C flat. So those are all 15 keys, and this is how you find them. And then from there, you can build your major scales accordingly. So now you don't have to do any mental math or anything like that. Just memorize those key signatures, and then you'll be good to go. You'll be able to both notate and write music in any key. That's going to be it for today. This is a lot of information to kind of go back through the video, review it, understand it, and join me for the next video in this series where we'll talk about intervals and how they work, both from a harmonic perspective and from a melodic perspective. As always, don't forget to subscribe on the button down there. See you guys next time.